How do you keep yourself dry? When the wind is blowing so hard that it hurts and there's no shelter in sight, how do you keep yourself safe? When life kind of throws you that curveball that kind of makes your knees buckle for all you baseball players, how do you respond? Better yet, let's simplify the question. When life throws you pressure and adversity situations, how do you respond? For years, I was acclimated to pressure situations, being a MSU basketball player from 2006 to 2008. I can remember standing at the free throw line of a nationally televised game in front of 5,000 plus fans right here at the Brick Breeden Fieldhouse. I was standing there with 2.1 seconds left. We were up by 2, and I needed to make these 2 free throws to win the game. Not only to win the game, but to get us the win so that we could keep track with the rest of the teams that were vying for the last 2 playoff positions in the Big Sky State tournament. You see, I remember being at the free throw line and I was very, very excited because the coach at the timeout had told him to get me the ball so I could get fouled to make these shots. So the game was in my hands. But as I sat on the line, I'm starting to feel a little bit of pressure, kind of feel a little nervousness, you know? You're in front of 5,000 screaming fans. And I can remember it was a national televised game, so I know that my mom, my dad were watching. All my friends back home in California were watching. And that's a rare occasion when you're here in Montana because our games weren't televised. So I knew that I did not want to be that guy. I didn't want to be that guy that missed the game-saving free throws and couldn't handle the pressure. You see, I wasn't a great free throw shooter my whole entire life. In high school, I was like 50%, which is terrible. In junior college, I was also 50%. But my junior year at Montana State University, I made a commitment to shoot 100 free throws every other day. I also made a commitment that I wouldn't leave practice unless I made 10 free throws in a row. So I trained myself and trained myself and trained myself to make free throws. Not only had I done that, but all of us have had that dream in the back of our yard where you make the 2 free throws before you go home or go in to eat dinner. Or you put yourself in simulated pressure situations so that when you do have to be in that big time moment, you'd be able to knock them down. So as I'm sitting on that free throw line, I kind of start to smile and smirk. I kind of get excited because I've trained for this moment. And the fate of the game lied in these 2 hands. 5 years ago, I accepted a program managing position with a company called Aware. Aware has 3 group homes. One is an autistic group home right off here off of Candlelight Drive. And they have 2 mental health group homes for kids 11 to 18 years old. One off of Villard and one off of Babcock. I remember being excited to accept this job because I'd been working 9 months at the autistic group home, working my behind off, and now I was finally in a position to where I was going to be able to be a manager, a boss. At the age of 22 years old, you kind of feel good about that, you know what I mean? You don't have too many bosses at that age. I also remember I was going to be making more money, so that was also a nice little incentive to have at that age. As me and my boss got out of the car for my first day of work, I remember walking up to the Donna house, and he goes, "Mecklin, I hope you're prepared and know that you have 7 employees that are full-time, and you have 9 part-time employees. That gives you 16 employees overall." And at the time I was young, I didn't really understand, I didn't know any better. You know, I'm just still excited about the new position and how much money I was going to make. But I didn't know about the pressures, the anxieties, the leadership skills I was going to have. That was 16 different personalities that I was going to have to manage and get all on the same page to help change kids' lives so they could get back to their families and live the lives that they wanted to live. As I walk into the room, I remember seeing all 16 of the employees scattered off on desks, on the couch, in the kitchen area, and they're all looking at me. No big deal. I've experienced that before. And then my boss says the meeting is adjourned or started, and he announces me as the new program manager. And then he says, oh, by the way, this is your meeting. I need you to lead it. So I walk up, stand in front of the room, kind of like I'm doing with you guys today. And I make eye contact with each and every individual in the room. And they're all staring back at me, right in my mouth. And then I kind of had a realization. Not only was I younger than all but 3 of the employees in the room, not only was I the only African American in the room, not only was I the only minority in the room, but I was starting to feel kind of awkward. Kind of like a chocolate chip in a bag full of marshmallows. Just felt weird. And then not only did I feel weird, I kind of start feeling that same pressure that I felt on the free throw line at that Sac State basketball game. And at that moment, questions started to rise in my head. Do I even deserve this job? What are they going to think of an African American boss in Montana? I'm so young, are they even going to care what I have to say? And then I asked myself a question that I'll never forget. Are you sure you're good enough and have earned a position to be here? I think all of us have been in this state of confusion in your life before, this state of I don't know. I think all of us have been there once or twice in our life. And then I kind of got confused. What had changed? What had changed from me being able to handle the pressure situation in front of 5,000 screaming fans at the Brick Breeden Fieldhouse to now standing in front of just 16 individuals in a small room having to lead a meeting? And then that little voice in your head came on. The voice in my head said, you damn right. Mecklin, you damn right you deserve to be here. You see, because no one knew what I had been through in my life to get to where I was at. No one knew what I had gone through the 9 months previous to be able to earn the position that I was standing in. You see, the position wasn't handed to me. I didn't suck up to upper management in order to get to where I wanted to be. I didn't commit co-worker homicide and go around talking behind people's backs, pulling them down like a crabs in a bucket. I earned where I needed to be. People didn't know that I kind of grew up in a group home. Not that I was a group home kid, but my dad ran a group home. And so the group home was less than a quarter mile from where I lived. And so every morning as a child, from the age of probably 3 to 5, I would be in the group homes acting like I was one of the counselors. Of course I wasn't, but you couldn't tell me that at the age of 5. I don't think you can tell any 5-year-old that at the age of 5. But I was going through the same things. I was sitting at the table with the kids when they were learning. When they were going to lift weights, I was there encouraging them. I was there running with them. I was learning what it was like to be in a group home. And better yet, I got to follow my dad around, who did a great job of managing the group home. You see, it wasn't about money for him. It was about changing lives. It wasn't about getting accolades. It was about making sure that those kids would never be back in the juvenile probation system ever again. And I got to learn from that situation. It was a devastating day when our group home got closed down because the property that it was on, that manager kicked us off and then started a group home just like it of his own. But those 2 years of preparation stayed in my mind for a long time because I wanted to be just like my dad, managing these type of kids. Not only managing the kids, but managing the employees and running a business kind of like that. I enjoyed the times, 3 or 4 years later, hearing the phone ring at 1 in the morning. It was one of the kids that my dad had worked with saying, "Thank you for changing my life. I am now successful. The words that you said back when I was 16 or 17 are now making sense to me, and they saved my life." I enjoyed hearing him talk about those situations, and I wanted to be just like him. The second thing that had prepared me for the job at the Donna House, at that mental health group home, was the 9 months prior to me getting promoted. The Candlelight Group Home is an autistic group home. And I don't know if you guys know about autism, and this is a severely autistic group home, but severely autistic kids can't speak verbally. They make sounds, so maybe that is, being verbal. But there was no communication that we could understand. It was all on body language and the sounds that they were making, their tendencies. And I didn't know that when I first went into the group home. I just thought I was getting a nice little group home job that my sociology teacher had helped me get. But when I went in there, I learned that this was a whole new world. We had kids, headbutting and biting themselves, pinching themselves, which we call self-injurious behaviors, because when they got frustrated or when they got nervous or when they had anxiety, that's how they displayed that. I remember the first day I worked with a client, he went to the bathroom on himself 4 times and I had to clean it up. I went home that night and I cried. I was like, is this something I really want to do? Like, what was I doing so wrong that my client went to the bathroom on himself 4 times and the other 3 coworkers had a smooth, easy day? Not realizing that they had been there so long that they had picked up on the signs on how to work with their client. And for the next 2 to 3 months, I realized that it wasn't about me. It was about working with the client and learning how to keep that client happy. I learned how to read the signs. I learned how to tell when he had to go to the bathroom or when he was upset. And then I started taking it personal. I wanted to make sure that my client was so happy he didn't even have any self-injurious behaviors because I was taking care of him. I'm not saying that all the days are perfect, but they got better. And I became a leader there in that group home because of how much I cared, how much I was working with the kids and striving for perfection. And then it got to the point where my client would be fine and I would be able to go help the female staff who were being aggressed on by some of their clients. And they started to respect me because of that. So not only did I become a good direct care staff member, then I started wanting to expand to do other things. I remember during that 9-month stretch, we had 3 different bosses. And so when they were hiring people, I would have to help another female staff member take care of the receipts, take care of the billing, take care of tracking information, managerial type stuff, scheduling, things that were above and beyond my job. Again, this is something I like to do, I wanted to do, going back to what I had gone through when I was a child with my dad. The last 3 months of me working at the autistic group home was the most pivotal months of my life. It started, I want to say, in October of 2009. Aware had just fired both of their overnight staff, and 2 to 3 of our weekend members quit. They were burnt out. They were over it. And so I was working the weekend shift with another friend named Stephanie, and the weekend shift kind of went, on Thursdays we worked from 2 to 10 at night. Fridays we worked from 2 to 10 at night. And on Saturdays we worked from 8 a.m. till 10 in the morning. 14-hour shift. So we were putting in 34 hours in 3 days. And so I would work those 2 shifts, and then because we didn't have overnight staff, I would have to come back on Monday and help work from 2 to 6, go home, come back 4 hours later, and work from 10 to 8 in the morning. And I did that for a month and a half, averaging almost 60 to 68 hours a week. Not because I wanted to, but because we didn't have staff to fill in those positions. And if we didn't have staff to fill in those positions, that meant that the boys were being neglected. And I morally wasn't doing what I said I was there to do, because I wasn't there for money. I wanted to help change lives. Then November came, and the program managing job opened up over at the Donna House. And so I applied for it. Didn't think anything of it. I really didn't think I was going to get it. I'd only been working in the company for 8 months, and I figured they were going to go find somebody else to manage it. I remember 3 weeks had passed and I hadn't got any phone calls, and I got a call from the Villard House manager, and she was asking me a question about one of my clients. And I said, gave her the information, and she said, well, have you heard back from the job? And I was like, no, I think they gave it to somebody else. And she kind of gave a dead, giveaway. No, I don't think that's what happened yet. maybe you can just hold on. Maybe you'll hear from him a little later. 3 days later, I heard from him, and they had given me the position. It was December 5th. But they were not going to allow me to start my role as a program manager until January 1st of 2010. We still were understaffed at Candlelight, and so I decided for the next 3 weeks I was going to work every single day so that the other staff members would have a break and would have time to themselves before I left. When I started that job at the program as a program manager at the Donna House on January 1st, I looked back at the track record from how long I had worked the last 65 days. I had worked 58 out of 65 days in a mental health group home, which is mentally taxing for you that have to work in that population. So when I went back and thought about those stories, when I was sitting in front of my staff that day at the Donna House, I realized that what I had gone through the 9 months prior at Candlelight's group home, the blood, sweat, and tears I had invested into the Candlelight group home, the sacrifices socially I had made in order to not only make sure the group home was run correctly, but to make sure the boys were taken care of, I realized that I had earned the spot to be standing right there in front of all 16 of those employees, no matter my age or color. And not only had I earned the opportunity to be there, I was more than prepared to take on the pressure of the new job. Just like I had prepared myself year in and year out to shoot free throws for that Sac State moment, I had prepared myself by watching my father and putting in those 9 grueling months at Candlelight to be a program manager. To answer the question that I posed at the very beginning, how do you handle pressure and adversity? You handle pressure and adversity by embracing the moment. By realizing the challenges ahead of you and attacking them head on. Because more often than not, the things and the trials and tribulations that you've been through in your life and the lessons that you've learned from prior pressure situations can prepare you to conquer the trials that are coming up in your world. It's when you let those questions of doubt make their way in your mind and make a nice little home there that they start underlining how prepared you really are to face that adversity. Through pressure and adversity, you learn who you were, who you are, and who you want to be. Thank you.